So I am Nathan of the Alex Nathan Duet. We are enterprise solutions engineers. So what that means is that we gather requirements for our larger potential customers, and we configure the software to meet those requirements. So one of the things that we use to meet those requirements for our larger customers going to be client scripts and widgets in the Zoho CRM. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. The agenda, of course, we're going to get into client scripts. We are going to explain some of the resources, ways that you guys can use them. We're also going to give use cases of those client scripts and then get you guys started. Going to do a pretty good demonstration of what they're capable of, things that we've probably configured for our potential customers or our customers before, real life use cases for those client scripts. And then we're going to do the same for widgets. I will explain what each of these are. So let's start with client scripts, why they exist within the Zoho CRM. Widgets exist within multiple applications, but client scripts are currently only in the CRM system. So one of the big use cases for client scripts is going to be fixing problems with inconsistent data. I know a big one in the CRM is that our default phone field can accept values with hyphens, without hyphens, with country codes, without country codes, all kinds of stuff. So what you can do is deploy a client script that executes when that field is adjusted, that fixes that to match your formatting or what you guys want to consistently do. So that's a good kind of simple example of client scripts. Manual data and redundant tasks. So as you're entering data into the CRM system, you might have multiple fields, and as you're filling one out, you always fill out these other 5 fields the exact same way, right? A good example might be maybe you have a residential customer or a commercial customer. So if you select residential, fill out all of these fields based on that residential customer. If you select commercial, then fill out the fields based on the way that you handle a residential customer. Complex conditional logic that workflows can't handle. So we'll actually get into some of the explanation of what happens in a client script versus what happens in a workflow versus what can happen in a custom function. But this is handling that logic in real time, right in front of you in the UI. No immediate feedback on form errors. So again, happening in real time, you guys don't have to click save. You don't have to wait for that to hit the database to actually see that you have an error within the system. And you can proactively use the client script to prevent errors from even happening in the first place. So what is a client script? A client script is JavaScript code that is on the front end of the CRM that will execute upon certain actions happening. So those actions out there, we'll talk about them a little bit more, but things like entering values into a field, changing values of a field, saving a form, a page loading within the system. So there's lots of different things that are going to execute this JavaScript code to perform whatever functions you guys need them to. So it's execute, right? So client, I think I already covered execute. So as you actually put that JavaScript code out there, now you can execute it on the back end through our IDE. So we'll get into all of that out there as far as how you set these up. And like I said, they happen in real time. It was always a big obstacle for us for custom functions. They happen on the database side. They don't actually happen in front of the customer out there.
Can I chime in briefly?
Please.
So client scripts are an addition to workflow rules in Deluge, which was the way we handled a lot of our automations previously. They compete to a degree, but realistically, there's going to be scenarios where client scripts are a better fit, and then other scenarios where using a workflow rule, blueprint, something like that, Deluge is a better fit. Big problem client script is solving is that with a workflow rule and a function that's going to run behind the scenes, you can only do things when the actual record is saved. So Nathan has already talked about this, but when you're actually on a form field itself, filling out a record, making edits, you can have code interactivity within that form page itself. It's not reliant on a save action. It can be like on type, on load, things like that. So it's a little bit more dynamic in that you can have programmatic logic function at different stages of actually entering data, not just at the save event, which was the previous limitation.
Perfect. So some examples I gave you, already gave you the phone number example, but a big one, and actually Alex is going to walk through this out there as well, is a duplication check. So one of the limitations of our built-in duplication check tool is that it doesn't search cross-module, right? So if you have a lead and you're converting a lead into a contact, that contact might already exist because they're in two different data tables. So now what we can do is do a duplication check to see if that person or that company or that email or that phone number exists in any other module within the CRM system. Formulas in the system. So we do know that we have formulas built into CRM. For me, they're sometimes they can be cumbersome for pretty advanced logic using those formulas. If you guys are familiar with JavaScript, you can go out now and you can perform really advanced calculations. You could pull in data from another source and calculate that data and then populate that value in another field. So doing those complex formulas, I'm more likely to do them in a client script versus doing them in the built-in formula field out there. Data consistency, I think the phone number is really kind of the perfect example of that one, but maybe we are concatenating values from one pick list field to prefix like our item number, right? So if we pick a metal component or a steel component, we're going to add ST and then the item number. So some of that's built in with auto numbering, but now your options are limitless. So really doing that data consistency, data concatenation, and then beyond, right? So it's JavaScript. That means that we can use standard JavaScript tools to connect to external databases. We can, and we'll show you some of this, but there's all of the built-in HTTP connections in our ZDK, so Zoho's development kit out there. So a lot of these functions are going to be built in, and then you can just expand them with standard JavaScript.
Another one I'll add, very common, don't have it on the slides, but comes up a lot, pre-filling forms. So if you have data in a different module in the CRM, a good example would be, hey, we're creating a quote or a contract and we want to pre-fill with all the data that's already in the account. Those are things that's real easy to do within Client Script. You can do that within the CRM data, but you could also be querying information from a third-party database and then pull that into your contract, your quote, whatever it happens to be in real time. So another very popular example.
Yeah, and before client scripts, you couldn't do that in real time, so you just had to assume that the system was going to pre-fill those values after you save. So now you can do it in person. So where can client scripts be used? So this list was very short a couple years ago, and it's just really expanded. And there's some new ones coming out as well. But we can always use it in the create, clone, and edit pages. So this is of the standard form, and then also and you see on the next one, also in Canvas. So in the standard create form, obviously with all the fields, or if you're using one of the new Canvas create forms, you can do it there as well. The biggest one is, of course, going to be the detail page. So after a lead is created, a contact is created, that form that you look at, just to see that actual record. And again, in Canvas, in standard, also in the list page. So this is one that can be really fun for some of the mass actions that you might do, right? You have a list of contacts and we want to be able to take data from that record without opening it and execute a function, right? So maybe send that data to your ERP system or generate a quote in your finance application. So you can just click that button within the list view and send that data or execute a client script out there. So the other one that has come up recently that isn't on here is Wizards. So Wizards can also execute client scripts. So it really makes Wizards a lot more powerful, a lot more that you can do with them with client scripts. All right, so what's new in client scripts? Commands. We'll talk about this a little bit, but most of the client scripts that we have are going to execute on a record. So again, looking at a contact, looking at a lead, looking at that list view, commands can execute and they will show up on the bottom toolbar. You guys might have seen this pop up in your CRM. Down at the bottom, there's a little command icon that you can click on that will almost act as a macro. It's going to execute that JavaScript code every time you need to do it, right? So if maybe you have a manual synchronization with another system, throughout the day, you can click that button, send it over, refresh your screen and see that in there. So commands are a pretty powerful tool. Subforms. So Alex is going to show a little bit of some of the subform functionality, but one of the newer things is that actions that happen to fields within subforms can trigger a client script to run. So yeah, a good example would be maybe if we're loading in products into a opportunity or a deal record out there, and we want to get that pricing data every time we select an object from another system, right? Because maybe things are changing really rapidly. Now you can pick that product within that subform, execute your client script, go grab that up-to-date price, all of that information. So
Also, I'd say for the subform, building quotes is the most common example that I come across where you can say, hey, if I'm adding a piece of machinery, also automatically suggest a warranty and add that as a list item automatically, or a little box that I can check and it's just going to add that for me. And I don't need to hunt through the whole database of products when I'm quoting it. I can be like, hey, this is the product that the customer is interested, and I'm going to check these boxes and have my common add-ons automatically populate. All that logic in terms of mapping it out, adding that to the quote, that can be done within the client script. So that's the scenario that comes up probably the most. Is it's like we have our own CPQ functionality. If you want full control, you can kind of do it yourself CPQ using client script functionality.
very, very good. We already talked about wizards, but here's a fun fact. This actually had Harry Potter when I made this presentation, and today it has Gandalf. So we're having
God,
a
you
wizard
edited. You were overrushed.
issue. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that. So what is coming on the client script roadmap? There's actually quite a bit out here. So Canvas subform and portal support is already live. I didn't mention the portal support before, but this, really makes client portals usable now. You can perform all of the same automated actions that you guys do on the actual client facing portal. Commands are already live. We talked about that. Custom buttons. So custom buttons exist now in Canvas for client scripts, but they don't exist for the standard record out there. So that is one that is going to be coming. You can add custom buttons to all of your records. Support in notes. So you can already start to think about things that would happen there, right? Taking all of these notes, giving me a summary of that without having to use Gen AI or send that over to OpenAI. So taking that data, compiling some notes, or giving me a summary of all of those notes out there, maybe formatting it and sending it to another system. Quick create and activities. So this is quick create an item in the system. There's that real small form. So if you want to create like a lead real quick, you only have 3 or 4 options. Or if you're creating an opportunity, it's going to be active in there, as well as if you close a deal, you get that little pop-up that makes you type in some additional information, maybe a close date, maybe amount. We're going to be able to execute them. And then also error logs. So client scripts right now are the only way that you can see an error for a client script is either by navigating into your developer console of Google or actually executing it in our test environment. But soon, client scripts are going to have their own error logging. So you can just go directly into the settings console and see that. All right, so the live demo, the things that we're going to cover. So Alex and I are going to split this up. I'm going to start with the easy stuff. He'll get into the tougher stuff. So I'm going to show a lot of client script things that happen in a canvas because they're fun. They're things that really help you guys kind of navigate your tool out there. He's going to show some fancier backend stuff. We're going to walk over the IDE. So built into the CRM, we've got your full developer environment in there, the CS library, so all of the built-in functions that we can use, and then we're going to create a new one. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the really simple things that client script can do. So this is really a good starting place. So some of the really simple navigation sort of things that you can do are, in this case, the mother's maiden name. I'm masking it. So I know that's a big requirement for people who might be customer facing. We have a social security number, might have a mother's maiden name, we might have date of birth. We're going to mask that so that people can't see it. I'm executing another client script on these little tiny buttons you can see there that navigate to a certain section of the page and then put it on focus. So in this case, when I click on open, it's going to take me down and open up those tasks. If I look on the right over here and click on accounts, it's going to navigate down and open up the accounts down on the bottom. So just a few different little navigation utilities you can use. Also, tool tips. So in Canvas, you have access to norm, like the regular tooltips that you guys would set up, but now you can do tooltips on everything. So if you have new employees or you're doing employee onboarding, they can hover over something and get a really good detailed description by adding a client script behind that element and then seeing, what they actually do to it. So the other thing, and this is actually going to be a combination of the two, and I'll go ahead and show this while we're in the screen, is a flyout or a pop-up. So this is executing a widget or executing a client script that accesses a widget and brings it into visibility. So we haven't explained what widgets are yet for those of you who don't know. I won't get into it too much, but the client script, when I click on view transactions in this top right, is going to open up a widget, execute that code, and pull back some banking transactions in this case. So in a bank, of course, when you have transactions, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of records. We can't store all those in the CRM system realistically. So this is sort of on demand, grabbing that information and bringing it in. So the client script is what pulls up this window, and then the widget is what sits on top of that window and makes it visible out here. So we'll get into a little bit more details on those out there, but that is really what I have to show you.
Yeah. So echoing what Nathan said and maybe rephrasing it, interactivity within the actual record itself, that's all client script functionality. So on load, that can be the trigger for some kind of programmatic action to take place. It could be masking information. It could be live fetching information from an external database. The other one to stress in terms of actually, let's find my account. There we go. In terms of actually bringing data into the system, or excuse me, in terms of controlling functionality on forms, this is just going to be a very common one here. This would be a deduplication check or a duplicate check. So if I'm going to type on stage and get it right the first time, let's go. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to click off. So right now I have typed this in. We could have the listener, the trigger event, be the actual keystroke. In this case, I'm going to say I have focus on this email field right now for a new lead. My client script trigger is when this field loses focus. And then I'm getting our pop-up that says Karen Smith Solutions is a possible duplicate. It's only going to stay up there for a couple seconds, so I'll do it again. Possible duplicate. Get back there. Possible duplicate might already exist already. Do I want to pull it up? Okay, well, we have Karen Smith Solutions email here. Turns out that she's already, zoom back out, a contact that exists within the database. So what's happening behind the scenes, and what's happening behind the scenes with all the functionality that Nathan is showing off, is when I'm performing my trigger action, it could be page load, it could be typing something out, it could be exiting a form, clicking a button. In terms of the roadmap, when Nathan's listing new features, we basically started client scripts listening for forms, and we're expanding out support for, the goal is every plausible thing that you could do within the CRM to be viable triggers for the actual client script, the JavaScript code to kick in behind the scenes. So if we were typing in that email and we're losing focus, what is happening behind the scenes is, and we don't need to stress too much about reading this, right? I'm just going to say the high-level details here, but this right-hand side, this is what you'd actually put in and set up. The important thing here is we're saying, hey, I want to target the leads module, the create page form, and then what event do we want to listen to? Well, we are listening for the email field, and we're doing it on change. In practice, this is when I lose focus on that form field, this whole function is going to wake up and do what it does. Now, this is pretty basic, pretty straightforward. What I'm doing is I'm using the client script SDK, ZDK, to look up the leads module and say, hey, see if we have any leads that already have a matching email. Then I'm doing the same thing for the contacts module. Hey, look at contacts, see if anyone has a matching email. Then I'm doing the same thing for accounts. So I'm basically going through all plausible modules, right, where this person could already exist. And we're saying, see if the email that was entered into our form exists in the database already. We're searching through all those records, right? And then if it does, this zdk.client.show message, right? That's what's actually going to trigger that pop-up that says, hey, Karen Smith, Karen customer, whatever I'm calling her, she already exists in the system. Would you like to view her record already? Now, in this case, I'm being pretty lenient. Where are we? I'm being pretty lenient. I don't have, like if I try and save it, it'll still let me save it. I'm not doing a hard block. There are ways of setting it up where it won't let me save it unless the email is unique. Could do the same thing for first name, last name, phone number, company name, any field that we'd have within this form, subforms, things like that. Those are all exposed, that the client script can actually listen for those changes, and it can prompt me, it can update the information, preload the information, whatever we want to do based off of the rules that we have set up here. Something quickly that I do want to add in terms of client script and versus workflow rules or something like that, the new tools that we're introducing, widgets, client script, they're all JavaScript-based tools. Traditionally, our tools are all based on Deluge. So if you are someone with experience with JavaScript development and maybe not Deluge development, might be something to look after getting started. Both tools have their place, but it's just a kind of new paradigm that we're adopting. Do you want to take back, or should I go through a second example?
Go ahead. Please.
Perfect. The other main one that I wanted to show off, and then I'll give it back to Nathan, if we're to go into our quotes module, so I can be creating this, I'll actually X you out here. Anything that I'm actually clicking on the screen here, so I'll do demo. We're going to do Ironside Solutions. Same story as what I showed before. When I click off, what I'm doing here is I'm just modifying the existing field on the screen. If I grab a specific deal, they're all new opportunity, right? We're going to update this subject line as the actual content changes. So any action that I'm taking on this form can update other data within the system, other fields within the system. And this is all going to be done in real time. If I wanted a pop-up or something like that, I can get that too. If we scroll down a smidge, or same thing here. So my terms, net 15, 30, 45, 60, these are just little use cases that are very helpful. So if I'm changing the terms, my valid until, that's going to change behind the scenes. So June 29th, then I change it to net 60, and now it's going to go to July 14th. So any actions that I'm taking, this is just a normal little date field. There's nothing special about it, but I'm updating that value in real time based off of some other action, some other field value within the tool. Last thing that'll show off here, if I hop below, I can add my services, my products like normal, or I can have a client script. So I'm going to just say add insurance. And I have this hard-coded just to do a powertrain warranty, right? In practice, this could be any item that's going to match what's been entered in so far. If I say add shipping costs, add billable hours, whatever the case may be, each action that I'm taking can actually build out that quote or remove values from it. That can all be based off of rules that you have defined with the client script. So the option I have right here, it's just add-ons. So I'm going to check the box, or I'm going to say yes or no on a Boolean value, and it's going to add that in. You can also have it set up where when I select one value, it'll automatically add like suggested add-ons to the quote itself. The goal is that any action that we're taking in here, the quote itself, the form itself, can be modified, added to, manipulated in a variety of different ways.
Perfect. All right, so just staying with client scripts real quick, I am going to create a new one and just show you guys kind of getting started. So for those of you who have not used client scripts before, I'm going to go into the standard record, and we could access this through the settings, but we're just going to create one real quick. So on the, and I have that turned off. Let me see. I will go into the settings and open up client scripts. So when I create a new script, of course, I'm going to give it a name, and we'll just call this a demo. We're going to select the either module or commands now. So this is new. And if we selected commands, it would be executable by this little button down here on the bottom that you probably can't see. But down here on this toolbar, there's going to be a new command option. So we'll select modules, and now we have to say where we want it to go. So I told you, of course, where all of these locations are, but just for a really simple example, we're going to do it on the detail page standard. And that way, when we, in this case, for a contact, when we open this page, that client script is going to execute. So this is where you can see some of the other options. Page event is going to be on page load. Field event is going to be, you select the field and then you select what it is. So on before update. So as you change that actual value out there. Subform event, of course, fields that exist within a subform, but this can also be a row being added, a row being deleted. Blueprint event. So as you're transitioning from one stage to the other, mandatory field form event, right? So as mandatory fields are required, and then as tags are added. So kind of a lot of new ways out here that we can do that. We're going to do kind of the most easy to walk through here and do it on a page event of onload. So when that page loads, execute this client script. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. So we're not going to sit here and write a whole bunch of code today, but I do want to show you guys the ZDK or the development kit out here. So when I click on this button in the IDE, it's going to give me all of these pre-built operations that we can just plug and play. So we can just grab these, throw them in there, modify them to meet our use case, and they're going to work, right? And then we add any sort of JavaScript on top of that we need to get it to function the way that we want or perform whatever function we want. So I had mentioned some of these with the flyout. So when I clicked on that view transaction, this is how we open a flyout. There's some other components like getting values. I'm not going to walk through all of them. Let me find the one that I want to show though. Is okay, so we're just going to show an alert. So this is really, really basic, but when I click on show alert, it's going to give me code that will actually work, and then I just modify it. So I'm going to copy this, and we'll just paste this directly into the client script IDE out here, and then this is what's gonna appear. So if I go on the left over here, you can execute this from directly within the IDE, and I hit play. It's going to perform that action that I want to happen to execute that client script. So there it is. That's my pop-up. That's what it's going to look like when somebody goes out there. So that's super basic, right? But you get the idea. Now we're maybe checking to see if there's an overdue invoice, and then we pull up a pop-up, right? So using that JavaScript to perform some logic, when do we populate this? What data do we show when we do it? So go ahead and play around in here if you haven't. There's a lot of really kind of fun things that you could use, popping up emailers, confirmation methods, getting input from the user, all kinds of little things that you can do. So the super most basic example of a client script there. And we'll go ahead and move on to widgets. So widgets are kind of they're the open up the capabilities of the CRM system fully. I mean, this is custom code that gets embedded within the system. So why do widgets exist? I mean, really, you have the CRM system, but that's not the only system you guys use. There's tons of other systems out there. Out of the box connectors don't normally work, especially for our larger customers, right? You guys have very specific things you want to do, but you want to see that data in the CRM, but you want to get that data into the CRM. So widgets are capable of executing that code to gather that data, and you can view this however you want within the CRM. So we'll explain that more. We need a way to display custom charts and analytics. That's a really common one, and Alex is actually going to explain to it, and I'm going to give you code if you guys want it. But what we can do is embed custom analytics dashboards. We can embed Zoho analytics dashboards for that specific record directly into the CRM. So he's going to give a couple examples on that as well. And I've got one that I built with SB Admin out there also. So we'll give you a couple options for those charts and graphs. Trigger actions across modules. So client scripts can do a lot of this, but they a widget can do even more, right? It's limitless, accessing data from another module, visualizing it within this record. All right, so widgets in CRM. So what is a widget? I got to read that because it's always something different. A widget is an application or web page embedded within the CRM application. So it truly is a piece of either custom code or a web page that can be embedded. So I actually have just a standard web page that I've embedded that we'll take a look at out there as well. What would you add?
It's a HTML, CSS, JavaScript project. It could be super simple. It could be as complex as you'd possibly want it to be, but you're going to upload and it's going to live within the system. And that code is going to have full access to the Zoho database if you want to be pulling in information about your current account or a lead within the system or anything else. So it's a custom application. You gave examples of like pulling data from other places and displaying it. It's also a tool if you want to build a feature that Zoho doesn't have yet. So some of the features that I have that I'll show off, it's things that our development team isn't working on that we need. And I'm like, hey, you can get that today. I'll just build it out and we're going to release that when we release it, right? But it's a way of proactively having features that maybe the team is working on, or maybe they just it hasn't been as sought after a need yet, and you can have that in the functionality today.
Perfect. Yeah, and when it comes to hosting, you can package this project up and execute it from within Zoho, but we can also host these externally. So again, a web page, or maybe we're accessing a dashboard from another application, you can host them externally as well and then pull that data in. So where are they? They're on the homepage dashboard. I use this one quite a bit. I think our dashboards have some improvements coming that are needed. So I actually use a lot of widgets and dashboards for some of our enterprise customers because I need to see different data from different places when they log into the CRM. Web tabs. So if you don't know a web tab, it essentially just looks like another custom module out there, but it accesses a URL. So embedding the widget within that web tab is going to give you that custom application within what looks like a custom module out there. We all know related lists, but that is going to be a good example, of course. A contact is related to an account, or a quote is related to an opportunity. So you can embed them as related lists within the CRM. Buttons, I'll show a couple of these, but clicking a button and opening up that widget, or executing code for a widget. Settings. This is one that I've done a few times, but you can actually create your own custom application within the settings panel of Zoho CRM. So you go to settings. Kind of the use case was that to complement our functionality, we didn't have the ability to natively export an XML file out of the CRM. So I created a settings widget that would go in, you'd tell it what data you wanted, click the button, and it would take the data from the CRM, give you an XML file to match the schema of whoever you needed to send it to, and then you send it off. So just kind of an example of the settings widget. Signals in our system. So signals are actions that happen or triggers within the system. So a new email is received. Maybe somebody does something on social media. So that can actually trigger a widget as well. I had a wizards section. My last presentation was on wizards. So also within wizards, I showed one of these off that would gather address information and determine whether or not somebody was within a service area. Do we service that area that person is in? And then blueprints. So within that blueprint, popping up a widget performing a function.
The plan is to get them everywhere.
Yeah.
So again, we're starting with the most common use cases. The plan is that anywhere within the CRM system, if you want to add functionality, change, improve, and whatnot, you're going to have the ability to do a client script. If it's some logic that can run entirely on Zoho, if it's like a quick little thing, if you want to embed a whole other application, do something yourself, you can embed it in a widget. So it's two different tools for accomplishing the same thing, which is extending Zoho's functionality, pulling in other data, and so forth.
So a few common use cases we kind of talked about a few of these, but the address map with Google API. So taking the address for a contact or an account and then displaying that visually on a Google map within the system. And now you can zoom in, dig out, you can get directions, whatever you need to. I'm going to give you guys access to some of these codes out there, so you can download the package and you can just plug in your own Google API key and then use this embedded Zoho analytics. So when we're looking at an account, we can embed an analytics page, but without a widget, we can't see that analytics data for that specific account. So now what you can do is you can open up an account record, go to a related list, and see a Zoho analytics dashboard just for that account. How many interactions did they have? Of course, third-party integrations, custom homepage dashboard. I kind of went on about that, but I think we got our 10-minute time card. So I'm going to go ahead and get into actually showing you some of the widgets. This out here, Zoho pre-sales demo. Let me pull this up here real quick. So I have a couple different things. I was just saying that I have some code. So if you go to Zoholics 2025, there's some canvas keys. So some of the canvases that we have you can download, but down here at the bottom, the Google Map widget, you can actually download that code. There's a roll-up dashboard I'm going to show you guys as well, and then a company overview. So if you've never done a widget before and you kind of want a place to get started, this is a good place to start. You can modify the code to meet your use case, but we'll take a look at these real quick and see what I'm talking about. So let's get out of our uncompleted client script, and we will go open an account that has quite a bit of that information. So I'm going to open up Coca-Cola as one of our customers, and this is one of those canvases you guys can download from there too if you want. So widgets that I have, this roll-up dashboard. So there is a chart.js library that is SBadmin2, and this uses that. So this is actually taking data from Coca-Cola's record out here in our CRM, showing me what that total open amount is, total won amount, total win percentage, right? Activities over time. You can do better than I did here. This was just kind of an example, but it's giving you very specific account information just for that account, not for the entire organization. Another one that I have is going to be the company overview. So this is a really basic one because these widgets within my widget are actually available publicly. So I think it's tradingview.com. I have the link actually on that web page. But these are widgets that you pass the stock ticker symbol that you can see here, KO is for Coca-Cola, into these widgets, and now you can display a company overview, a KO, Coca-Cola profile, all of that financial information. So again, just more examples of things that you guys can do if you come out here and you modify this ticker symbol to what is it? I'm trying to think of the A key won't work. Apple? APPL? Anyone know?
APPL.
Thank you. Apple.
It's a mistake that's been made before.
Okay, thank you.
Lots of people have APP stock that are meant to buy Apple.
Oh, and so it didn't like that. I think is it APLL? And I asked, and then now I'm questioning you. AAPL. I knew there was something odd about it. Odd about it. So AAPL. Check this out. And then now, there we go. So we have an Apple data, of course, from that widget. So it pulls that stock ticker into our widget, and then it uses that to display this information from these pre-configured widgets that are out there. I already showed you the example, of course, of the transaction when we were looking at that record. I will real quickly show you also a customer record, and I believe on the address out here. So again, taking that address information, pushing it into Google's API, and then displaying that out here. So this is actually interactive as well. It's not just an image. So you do yours.
So I'll speed through some just kind of ideas at this point. If we were to hop, let's find my account in here. Couple common scenarios. Some low-hanging fruit just to get started. If you are in CRM Plus, Zoho 1, or CRM Ultimate Edition, you get Zoho Analytics included. And this is just an easy way to put Zoho Analytics dashboards within the CRM itself. So I have this as a widget within the home section. A little bit more sophisticated is I can have my analytics within my account itself. So Nathan had shown using a third-party graph building tool, can do the exact same thing with Zoho Analytics, our native functionality. The only thing that I'm doing here other than copy and pasting the URL is I'm saying, hey, when it loads, and I'm actually, if I can find it, going to sneak into that real fast just so we can see some code behind the scenes. This that I have on screen is all that's running, and all it's really doing is it's saying, hey, on page load, I want, well, I'm going to set the size, but I also want you to find the account ID and then just apply that account ID as a filter to the graph that's being loaded. So in terms of kind of combining our different tools together, we load this dashboard. By default, it's going to load for every single account in the system, but we're dynamically applying a filter, so it's only going to show for Ironside solutions here. That's a really easy one. Other scenario to show off, if we were to hop, I'm going to go into Edward Norton, the lead here. If we wanted to have our, so if you go to deals, it's going to have the little option up top where you can click through the stages. Working on getting that everywhere. Right now it's only in deals. If you want to like a do-it-yourself option where we want to see what stage it's in and have it display in a bar, and then when we go from one stage to the next, it's going to automatically change within the system. That's a common thing to do within widgets. And last one to show off here, any module, let's turn off our filter, any module that you happen to be in, common scenarios that come up, it's like, well, I have a lead and I want to associate a specific product or quote or contract or anything else. You can pull your whole Zoho database or third-party database of information in real time, and then you can do live matching. So these are common scenarios. It's kind of a generic example, if you will, but just in terms of ideas, this is a feature, or both of them, they're features that we're working on, but we don't have at the moment, but you can do it today using the widget functionality. And then if we were, let's go into accounts. This is going to be another, we will have it, but not today. If I go into an account and I'm going to see all of my member accounts, the child accounts, if you will, actually visualizing it out. So we're saying we're in Ironside Solutions and show me all the child accounts, right? This is all relatively straightforward tree logic that you can build out in JavaScript in terms of rendering out, well, what is our parent account? And then what are the children and children and cascade down as much as you'd want. Same exact thing, but just with additional functionality. Again, just a slightly different UI. It's all the same data, all the same logic behind the scenes, but in addition of having it roll up, it's also going to display all the different contacts across all these various different accounts. So in terms of actual, like the UI, you'll have full control over what that looks like. This is built on the existing data structure, which is just, a brand new CRM account. You're going to have accounts and membered accounts, the chat accounts, but to actually visualize that out, you'd have a widget and it can display that logic in any format, or it's going to display that data in any logical format that you need.
Good. Hey, Tim, how much time we have? Okay, you want to get them started with the widget? Sure. Awesome.
So if we were to hop into our terminal here, so I'm actually running this as a test. And I'm going to get out of here, or back up one. And then it is going to be Zet. Zet is a CLI tool. This is just available on our website. I do already have it downloaded. Once you download that, I actually have the command. I'll follow up on that. I had to run it sudo, but if I do Zet init here, it's going to prompt me to do a new widget project. And by the way, this is if you'd want to upload it natively into Zoho. If you're hosting an external tool, you can just build your app and then put it in the system. This is if you want to compile it and upload it and host it on Zoho. So I'm going to say I want to have it for Zoho CRM. These are all the other tools that we're going to support widgets for, but we'll focus on the CRM today. And I'm going to call this Zoholics Houston. And we're going to initialize that. Oh, no.
The laptop, we don't have administrative privileges to the laptop, so we had this issue earlier. So Is
Ethan,
it-
you wanna slap that
Oh, yeah,
code in? We're gonna all hold our breath and it's gonna work. Oh, it already exists. We're gonna do new project, the classic, and hope that works. There we go. Cool. So what this has done, if we go into our new project, there we go. What it's done is it has created a note app for us for to hop behind the scenes. And let's go. Well, I'll actually gonna make y'all watch me hunt for it. But we're gonna go into project. There we go. No, I don't want Copilot. Thank you. This is all it's going to generate for me by default. So this is the default template where it says, hey, here's your JavaScript app. Here's an HTML file. If we were to say Z run, and this is all going to be in our documentation. If I'm confusing myself here, I should have it up already. Yeah. So if we were to run it, this is a sample widget built using Zoho extension. That's what the HTML looks like by default. Any changes that you make there, you can hot run it within your browser. You can also just upload this within the widget builder itself. Nathan, if you're going to show actually building it, we'll save that for you. But anything that you actually have built into the code here is going to be what displays in the widget. In practice, if we were to go back to our other guy, or if I've lost my place, he'll take my word. But the HTML, or excuse me, the Zoho Analytics page, that all the logic of the code, anything that's running behind the scenes, that can be making API calls, doing whatever you want to do. The actual HTML file that is being served, that's what's going to show up within your related list or within your homepage or anywhere else within the system.
Perfect.